There is no Korea. There are northern and southern counterparts, meaning that their country is split. A once united family, divided because of simple difference. A once meaningless way of plotting a course affects thousands daily. They were divided on the 38th parallel north and fought a war, ending with Korea still being divided on an uneven 38th parallel north. Because of differences in political standpoints, ideas, and opinions, reunification is something of fiction. Where they are divided is called the DMZ, Demilitarized Zone, and the border itself is called the MDL, Military Demarcation Line. The DMZ is completely chock full of military personnel. The separation resulted in multiple border clashes and current-day tension, which includes threats from North Korea's president to the south and several of its allies. A much-needed bonding truce was never in effect, just an armistice, which is not bonding at all, meaning that conflict could break out at any time, despite a compromise already being made. Such conflicts include the Blue House raid and the axe murder incident. The armistice was a temporary ceasefire, not a definite ending to conflict.
House is a very big house. Then North Korea armies used to that. They have the gun. Everybody. My mom's so scared. Like that.
At the end of World War II, after losing the war, Japan had to give up additional territory. That included Korea, land ruled by the Japanese for over 30 years. Because Russia and the United States, current world powers, occupied different parts of Korea and an ideological war was going on at the time, it was clear division was needed to prevent feuds. However, a much larger conflict was soon to follow. They split them on exactly the 38th parallel north. The leader of the north was Kim Il-sung, and Syngman Rhee was the leader of South Korea. USSR gave the north an array of strong military weapons, while South Korea didn't get much support because there were no current issues. When North Korea decided to invade South Korea in 1950, the South was completely helpless and got surrounded. From this, a conflict, the Korean War, erupted. Then the US came in to help South Korea, and the tables were completely turned. Now North Korea was cornered.
In the simplest terms, what we're doing in Korea is this. We're trying to prevent a third world war.
USSR joined again to help North Korea, and they were equalized. This conflict was unstoppable unless both countries gave up something important, and neither wanted to. After an extreme back-and-forth war, the involved countries decided it was time to stop fighting for a lost cause, and a compromise was needed soon. At last, on July 27, 1953, that compromise was made, and the forgotten war was ended.
This, however, was nothing close to a true compromise. Conflicts happen to this day, and the Koreas, along with their allies, are still instilling fear by threats, bomb tests, and news that send chills down one's spine.
Don't show it in color. It was the most horrible, beautiful sight that I've ever seen in my life. Which I don't want to see. I don't want to see it again.
It was a kind of miserable life, It's not enough food. Of course, no school.
As stated earlier, this compromise to divide Korea caused numerous conflicts that would haunt people around the world for many decades. Included conflicts were the war itself, the axe murder incident, and the Blue House raid. In the axe murder incident, United States officers were murdered in cold blood, the murderer's weapon being an axe. This homicide wasn't justifiable because the United States soldiers weren't doing anything hostile. They were reportedly trimming a tree. It was a huge military crisis, says experts on the Korean struggle. The US had numerous bombers that needed just one word to set a barrage of bombs into North Korean cities, but they decided that the bloodshed of hundreds was unnecessary for the deaths of a few soldiers. The North's allies, USSR and China, later said that they wanted nothing to do with the US, but as you can see today, that has clearly changed. Almost all information obtained was pulled from cameras all United States officers were supposed to carry with them, always.
Their main point of conflict is the Blue House raid, which was a major assassination attempt made by North Korea. However, they hardly even got into the Blue House. The Blue House was the house where the president lived while he or she was not in meetings. This means that North Korea knew exactly where the president of South Korea was at the time. While lurking through the forest, they found woodcutters, and instead of killing or bounding them in ropes, they lectured the civilians about how much better communism was. Then they released the captives without a second thought as to what they might tell authorities. They snuck into the south in small groups and eventually met up right before heading into the Blue House. Because the woodcutters notified the police were there waiting, and gunfire suddenly erupted. The North Koreans took the lives of 36 South Koreans and wounded 64. Out of the 36 killed, 24 were just normal civilians in the wrong place at the wrong time. The killings took place less than a half-mile away from the Blue House, which was due to lack of security. The president was, luckily, unharmed. 27 of the remaining DPRK soldiers were brought to be interrogated. This was the event that completely ramped up tensions for the following many years.
The division of Korea impacted the peninsula along with the whole world in short and long periods of suffering. A main short-term effect of the war was numerous lives lost and hundreds of thousands of wounded veterans and civilians. Almost 5 million people were killed, injured, captured as a prisoner of war, or missing in action during the Korean conflict. Upwards of 200,000 South Koreans were killed, 700,000 were injured, 42,000 completely lost, and almost 1 million were prisoners of war. Imagine this much life-draining devastation for 4 other countries who were extremely involved in the same war, like the US, USSR, and China. Almost 10% of the Korean population was lost for both North and South. More desolation caused by the horrific Korean conflict was intense fighting of the North and South, along with their allies. About 610,000 structures, inhabited and not, were destroyed, resulting in a spike of homelessness. This, in turn, led to strain on the economy, which threatened the futures of both countries, no matter how lackluster or aristocratic they might have been. China, the United States, and USSR weren't as economically affected because of the state their countries were in, which, even though some might not have been well off, was better than both Koreas. The economic effects would also impact the way in which both countries would evolve. North Korea would stay in a primitive, cut-off dictatorship, whereas the South would become just as important as any other country.
There are major impacts that have and still are affecting many to this day. North Korea allows little freedom to their people and there is no stopping it. They are isolated as well, which affects North Korea as a whole daily. South Korea has been allowing more and more freedoms to their people and has grown to a vital part of the economic world. Companies based in South Korea such as Samsung or Hyundai have made South Korea a booming industrial country. Conflicts still revolving around the Korean conflict are missile threats by the North, name-calling by leaders, and bombings. All these are proof that conflict is still fresh today. A major example is that Japan is beginning to think about what to do in case of a North Korean missile, which is fear of another war. Overall, the Korean War and the division of Korea affects millions from America, China, South Korea, Japan, North Korea, and the whole world to this day.
Korea is not a united family and never will be unless something drastic happens. A war again can be fought, millions again killed, all because of major impactful conflicts between countries. Conflicts like the Blue House raid and the Axe Murder incident were thought to have started that war, but reasonableness stopped it from happening. This once united family may never look at each other again. A single step over a fine line could be the cause of a major conflict, even if you simply trip. The armistice made to end war between countries may soon be a cause of another war. Countries' leaders today make you scared about what might happen tomorrow. As you can see, Korea has quite a history and an effect on the history of many other countries.
War still continues, it doesn't stop yet. It's both trips is 155 miles, get together. Still war, just a stop, temporary stop right now. It's very dangerous situation.